Hi, Kevin Barton and Robert Rose. I guess reflecting on that last presentation, are you saying that each parcel had to attenuate the full 100 plus climate change within the parcel, and then that was piped to another set of attenuation basins? So it wasn't piped to pond. Each developers are having to dig basins within their own parcel, which could have silted up on their own parcel?
The original concept for the infrastructure drainage was that on the basis of some very limited investigation where soakaways would be feasible on each of the residential parcels, there was no space on the layouts to put in any basins on those parcels, so that the soakaways had to be substituted for attenuation tanks, and that they were designed to restrict the flow to 2 litres per second per hectare before the water enters the infrastructure drainage, and then everything runs down to the big basins at the bottom, which are also designed so it was a double attenuation.
So it strikes me that's slightly unusual, but pipe to pond is not unusual. And as you're developing out a pipe to pond scenario, you are inviting that siltation of those ponds, aren't you? Whereas if you were to build out an infrastructure which, say, managed everything, say, past the 1 in 10 return period, and you asked each parcel to manage the one up to the 1 in 10, then each parcel during construction is more likely to be able to manage its own sort of construction waste and siltation and stop potentially it contaminating the wider sort of infrastructure. Is that?
I think on other jobs, if you think about 3,300 units, and then it's a bit daunting, but if then you split it up into sort of 10 jobs of 330 units, then it's like a more typical job. And certainly on other jobs, we would always countenance a proper silt management plan on site and stop the silt getting onto the road to clog up the infrastructure drains, so that the silt was coming from the infrastructure drainage system from vehicles running up and down the roads rather than from the parcels. And certainly in the northern neighbourhood, everything is attenuated twice. For the southern neighbourhood, it's a far more normal run-of-the-mill solution with large attenuation ponds and pipe systems running to them, but with silt catchment basins for the construction stage before the attenuation basins are actually built out to make sure that none of the silts get offside.
2 litres per second.
2 litres per second for the whole
It's
drop.
quite unusual though, isn't it?
I
think a relaxation would be half empty times.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise you can't do it.
Okay, I think we had Sue wants to ask a question.
I'll just say thank you very much to both Tim and Gordon for raising the issue of management and maintenance, as it's very dear to my heart at the moment, particularly in connection with the new SuDS construction guidance that will be published fairly soon, so it's very topical. I think the question I wanted to really raise in our discussion was this issue of how you address it through planning, because FRAs for outline consents, quite understandably, perhaps only have a line or two, because they haven't actually designed the SuDS features that are going to be there. They might have just allocated some sizes, but they're absolutely notional in their design. So the question then is that you need to take it to the detail stage, and even that can get changed. The issue will be once you actually get the fully detailed, designed and tendered drawings that are going to then be priced to be built on site. And at that stage, nobody's addressing those issues, which then sits with the contractor in terms of the site construction management plan.
Well, what's happened on GWP is that the SuDS management plans, which were in place before we got involved, were all approved by the local planning authority, but some of them we've already rewritten to be far more detailed and just substituted them in a later date. But that doesn't answer the question. I'll pass you to Gordon.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the FRAs which come in a lot of the time with pre-apps are very basic. The trouble is you can put a list of conditions with it, that going back and say, oh, this, that, and that, to come back. By the time it comes back they're coming in with the full construction plans, which is saying, well, that's not good, that's not enough. You haven't taken that it's like on Wrexham Park. Their first initial soakage test they did on site proved there was soakage on site. When they got on site, they found there was no soakage. So all the soakaways went, and that's why the storage went in, going down to the ponds. And that's why it's essential, I think, even in pre-applications, that we want to see geotechnical information. We want to know if the SuDS is going to work. Not have a line say, well, we're going to use swales, ponds and soakaways or whatever, provided the information's there. Soakages work. By the time they've done everything, it's almost getting too late. And it's a fight to get anything done properly.
I mean, I think the other issue is we always say you've got to design it for full attenuation unless you've got infiltration, geotech information actually in the features, if you're going to infiltrate in those features, because 50 metres down the site could be completely different.
Absolutely, and that's why you need full site survey, and tests all over the place, really.
Can I just clarify the thing about soakage tests? There were about 7 or 8 soakage tests done for the whole site in the outline planning stage, and then I think we're on phase 27 at the moment, and each of those phases has had a detailed geotechnical intrusive investigation, including soakage tests, and not a single one of those parcels has come back with a conclusion that soakaways are feasible for the site. So possibly it was going to be soakaways to get planning permission, and that's sorted out later.
There's a wider question there around the use of planning conditions, and DCLG at the moment are consulting on the use of pre-commencement conditions. We've spoken to them before about the use of them on outline applications for drainage, and the idea is that one of the ideas is that they will remove sort of the need for pre-commencement conditions, and then more will have to be done at the outline stage in terms of producing a full drainage strategy, unless you have the permission of the developer to stamp on the pre-commencement condition. Just an idea at the moment. Do you want to ask a question?
Hi, George Warren, Hampson Fulham. My question actually is to Jenny and Renuka regarding the Vista Ecotown. Actually, it's probably more Renuka. You mentioned about the benefits and you quantified those, and obviously there was quite some sizable benefits. I'd be quite interested to hear what the developers' take on that was. Now, obviously the driver was really the requirements of the Ecotown in order for them to deliver on this. I wonder if the developer outside of an Ecotown is now, having done this, quite tempted to deliver similar sort of schemes, and what the feedback has been.
Yeah, I'll try to answer some parts of it. The benefit assessment we did was not a requirement put in the scope. Yeah, there was no need to undertake such thing. Yeah, but that was done for the purpose of our own interest. Yeah, for sort of R&D purpose, and then sort of see the sort of bit of a case for the SuDS really. Yeah. So I guess since it's an eco town, and there was a full commitment from the developer to undertake such things, yeah, and implement these things, and also one of their, I'm sure their drivers for that is having a brand for the eco town, having this kind of special measures will give a unique selling point as well, so that comes side by side, shall we say, yeah. So even if we didn't do our benefit assessment, they are kind of amazed, by doing these extra things, will bring that additional brand, to the market value for their development. So we shared this information, to the developer, and which will give some extra, I guess, confidence, shall we say, for them. Yes, these things will be useful. We know there is a value behind it. How they use that in the marketing, I don't know yet, because I didn't ask that. Yeah, and whether they want to use that information, to sell, sort of a bit more. Yeah, so there is extra credibility credentials that the site delivers, wider benefits. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess my point is that we often speak about how developers, there are huge benefits, we all know that in a room full of people who, I guess, are pro-SuDS.
Yeah.
And quite often it's getting that across to developers that there are benefits and that they will see it and it's worth doing. Now, having been forced down the line of doing it and just showing the benefits, I'm hoping that maybe a light switch might turn on.
Yeah, just before I finish off, giving the microphone, I think, what we, trying to do is, I put a paper, for ICE, water management, so, the Cherwell, the intention was, this information will be shared, with the wider industry, and, the kind of presentations, and, also if this is kind of, it is accepted, but, I'm a little bit behind now, to give the final peer review feedback, probably with the final paper. So I guess, once this is out in the domain, with people, there is more interest, therefore other developers, I guess, that, this information is extra backup, for do things, a bit more differently.
I think I was just going to make a couple of points. Firstly, A2 Dominion are an RP, a housing association, so they have a long-term interest in the site, and that does give them a slightly different perspective from some other developers. So they do see themselves having long-term management, which includes some of the SuDS features and working with the community. So that does give them a slightly different perspective. I think the other thing is that all the work that was done up front around sort of eco-towns and how that might translate into value of properties showed that there was no premium. Nobody would say there's a premium for building to higher standards or having these very energy efficient houses or anything like that. And they're competing in a market in Bicester where there's other large developments taking place as well. But what they have found is they've sold extremely well. So that, I think, has given them quite a lot of encouragement to carry on. They've got some very good publicity and they've made sales early in the development. So I think that's been encouraging to them. So I think they would also say they've got quite a lot of learning from what they've done on the northwest side. I think it's their biggest site, A2 Dominion, that they're building out. As far as I know, I think a lot of their other sites are smaller. But I think there are certainly things that they would say that they've learned that they'll carry on. I'm not sure where they would stand on SuDS on that, but I don't think the SuDS have particularly caused them any issues.
Yes.
Hi, a question for Gordon. Yes. You were talking about sort of the details around the top of the SuDS and things, for trip hazards and things like that. I was just wondering if you had standard details within your authority, or what do you use to sort of assess SuDS before you take them on?
We've got some standard details, probably not as much on the trip hazard side of it. I think a lot of it is common sense, and you're probably like me, you're out on sites, you look at sites, and you've always got to look at these type of things, haven't you? Mainly, I tend to the trip hazard there is one thing, but I tend to look at the ponds and the big concrete head walls, structures, gablings with wires sticking out and not being filled properly. That tends to be more the problems than perhaps trip. I just picked that up because you can see the sharp edges, especially on the edge of the road. I mean, we have so many complaints of tyres with potholes anyway. The guarantee as it is, with damage to tyres, I think that's really. And that I've been dealing with someone with recently with sort of partial blindness and seeing hair. This just made me think more of it, really.
So you didn't really have a problem with adopting those sort of SuDS features?
We haven't so far, no.
Okay. Sure, Paul, go ahead.
It's a question for Tim and Gordon. Looking at some of the challenges you've had with this site, has there been any learning that's gone on in the district and county council in terms of going forward for future developments of SuDS? Have they picked up on the issues that it's caused for the developers? You clearly have, but as a district.
We work quite well with the district, actually. I mean, Tim, myself and Dave from the district, we've been meeting monthly, going through all these. A lot of the problems initially with this development, just like a lot of big developments in the past, the Environment Agency were the lead authority at the time they were done. Then the responsibilities were passed across to the local flood authorities. and all of a sudden, over to you, nothing to do with us now, you're leaving on it. Which, on some developments, you don't get all the information they looked at to start with. But I think on this, I mean, I think we've all learned how important it is to have these construction plans. I mean, what the developers allowed to happen on these sites. I mean, it costs them a lot of money to re-dig out all the suds on the site. Going forward, they're not dearer in maintenance. It's just during the construction period. You know, if you don't look at things properly, you don't manage the silt and the rubbish on the site, it's going to cost you big bucks. And I'm afraid the developers found this out.
Just at the back there.
Graham Hurst, I'm chair of susdrain project steering group. I've got more than one question. The starter for 10, I suppose, is with the silt being a problem, a hassle, I don't know what you would call it, what would have happened to the silt had this not been a SUD scheme, had it been a conventional drainage scheme?
It'd have filled up all the pipes, and they'd have spent a lot of money jetting and cleaning out all the system going down. The outfall from the northern development goes down to a watercourse which has newts in it, so they'd have got an awful lot of trouble down there.
I guess, you know, since suds are more visible, it becomes the contractor's problem now. You know, otherwise it would be, you know, partly, you know, people doesn't know the full extent of the problem, and somebody else will count it, picked up the bill down the line. Yeah. So it's a common problem, I think. Yeah. But you know, suds, you know, kind of bring the issue to the fore more. But the sort of this remedies for this, you know, it's not rocket science, I think. Yeah, you know, the simple things, you know, could have, you know, saved, you know, quite a lot of, you know, the pain, I think. Yeah, so just a mechanism, you know, how we can, you know, bring that, you know, awareness, you know, early on. So maybe solution could be, you know, bringing that into the planning conditions. I think so. It's where people need to start thinking, you know, how we're going to sort of deal with that. Yeah, so you know, then unless it's been written down somewhere, nobody take care of it. So I think, you know, if you sort of bring that, you know, the construction sort of management, you know, with the conditions, then people have to do something about it. Yeah, so you know, there will be a need to look at it. Yeah. So you know, since I have Mike, you know, I'm also asking a question. In a way, you know, to Tim, yeah, you know, I'm not convinced, you know, having a double attenuation system means that the sort of lower point will fill up, because you know you have a bigger font, you know, but not used. I think, you know, in my view, yeah, because the water coming, you know, to trickling straight, you know, 2 liters, and you know the water goes straight at the, you know, from the outfall. It doesn't have the need to attenuate. So you'll find that in practice, you know, the heart of this storage, you know, which is wasted. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's exactly. If it's already attenuated once, then it's just going to go into the second one at the same attenuated rate.
Unless you happen to get a bigger rainfall event that exceeds the first one, which is kind of
You should have had bigger attenuation.
Sure, Greg, you had a second question.
Can I come back now? I would contend that the SUDS have actually been successful in that one of the issues, we're not just dealing with water quality, we are dealing with water quantity, we are dealing with water quality, and one of the biggest issues is particles, silt. And a conventional drainage system with self-cleansing characteristics would have merely carried all of this silt into the natural environment. And essentially, the SUDS, despite the hassle in the construction phase, have actually functioned and protected the natural environment. One could perhaps, and what has been learned here, is that the construction phase, not just the maintenance and management of the SUDS, but also the whole of the construction operations, site stripping and phasing and all of these sorts of things, needs good planning. But I would have come at this possibly from looking at the opposite end of the telescope, that the SUDS have actually been rather successful.
They have. There's a lot of silt that's in the basins, or was in the basins and the ditches, and that they were successful. I think the thing that I was trying to get across is that in terms of the information that everybody was building to and working to, there was no management plan or construction management plan and the approved future maintenance plan was a one-liner saying use the Syria guidance. And I think certainly if you want it properly managed, then you need a better document that the contractor can price and the developer can recognise the cost of that in the development. But yes, they have been successful in stopping the silt getting down into the offside watercourses.
I think one thing which has cost the developer a lot of money, he planted up all the suds. It's all right stopping the silt coming down, but you ruined all the planting, so that was all went. I mean, you can put in if you do the sud system first, then do a pre-silt trap, which is easily cleaned out with no planting in, but it does catch the silt. That would be cheaper than ruining the suds which you've already planted. I think that was what we were really coming for.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions from the floor? I don't know, Bridget?
Bridget was about from HR Wallingford. Two things. The first thing is, Renuka, you seem to imply that the Highways Authority may be adopting some bit and another organisation adopting another. I know there's work on at Water UK and water companies may be going to adopt certain elements, but probably not things that include too much highway drainage. What do you think the risks are associated with potentially ending up with two surface water drainage systems on the site being maintained by two different organisations, and if a highways authority doesn't adopt SuDS and only adopts conventional drainage, and what are we going to be left with?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal scenario is, one organisation adopts everything, no doubt about it, yeah. But what we're trying to do is, try to make most with the things we have, yeah. So I want to get the system to operate in the best possible manner. So if soil is used, I think and if there is capacity, why not waste it? We need to sort of get that for serving the sort of plots as well as the highways, yeah. And then it is then managed by one party probably. But I think as long as we have clear guidelines, rather than having mix and match everywhere, but there's a clear mechanism, with different boundaries, so it is in a thought out manner, if you do that, so people know that the contractor knows, there's a strip, quite clear, there's somebody else has the responsibility, rather than mixing and matching everywhere. So I think things can be tackled, and like we were talking with Gordon yesterday, no harm that the council take the same management company as their agent to undertake the county's responsibility maintaining. Why send two crews? Yeah, so it could be more cheaper to get the management done using the same contractor. Yeah, so that is the win-win, I think. Yeah, so it's a bit of a red tape, but we can get the system to work with, considering like the eco-town, there'll be people, there's a lot of maintenance to be done on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so I think it makes all the sense. We talk to each other and then come up with a plan to do this management once. Yeah.
I was only going to say that in Bicester we already have a situation where we have highway management by the town council, the district still doing some management. We usually use the same contractor and it's usually managed through the district. So in practice, it's already a fairly mixed picture about who ultimately has responsibility, but it's made to work.
And can I ask one other question about cost? You talk about varying benefits, but obviously you put in a lot of SuDS and you must have a lot of costing information around between both Great Western Park and Bicester. Are those costs able to be extracted and logged anywhere so people can use them?
Okay. Surely the exemplar site cost, for example, should be readily available now because we have like initial estimates, and then we know, what is the real cost as well, so we can extract. Likewise, there was some high-level estimates done, for the wider town, yeah, and at the stage now we're in the process, refining that cost estimate, for the key infrastructure. There are a couple of big tenders going at the moment, for the key infrastructure, one for the strategic link road, and one for the key infrastructure. So behind the scene, we also sort of did the costing to go along with that. So yes, we have information, and they're not small sums, for such that I look through, so.
Sorry, Renuka, Bridget, did you do a comparison between a traditional approach and a SuDS approach, and how do they stack up?
For the benefit sides, yes, so we did a comparison, so so conventional versus SuDS. But what we have done is, I still didn't do the comparison with the benefits. It's a cost, but the information is there. We can extract, and then we can fill the gap puzzle. And I have a feel, for the application 1 and application 2 sites, I think the current estimates kind of shows this SuDS, for the strategic infrastructure could be in the order of potentially, based on information I've seen, reaching sort of near to 4 million, I think, So it's big sums, but remember, at the same time, they're not only doing one thing, they are doing multiple things, And
I think that's interesting when you do the comparisons as well. That even if they aren't as cheap as we hope they would be, they are delivering so much more than a traditional drainage system. So on that cost-benefit analysis, it stacks up.
It stacks up, it will, So that's what I was trying to say. It would be nice to do the picture, that the Oxford University study as well. So sort of, so we have the bigger picture, So just our site, then it will can extract that benefit to the wider site, So we can give the big picture to everybody.
In terms of the maintenance, the district already maintains quite a lot of SuDS in open space areas, and the costs aren't huge. There's usually standard maintenance costs, which are just applied on a metre square basis, an amount for fishing out shopping trolleys, and then a final figure that's added in for any sort of control structures, but actually it's not prohibitive.
Hi, I'm just interested in that these two case studies were in a more of a historic planning context, particularly Cherwell in relation to PPS1. So across both local authorities, what has been your experience in subsequent years as new planning applications are coming online? Have you been able to encourage SuDS, getting SuDS implemented, as we've seen this death slide in the power of planners?
In Cherwell, yes. I mean, SuDS were being done prior to the eco-town, very much encouraged by the county, who put quite a lot of work in early on. I think Gordon and his colleague Barry at the time. And we haven't seen massive resistance to that on the large strategic sites, but they're greenfield sites. I think where it's been much harder is on sort of smaller town centre type proposals.
In the county, we have agreement with all the councils, all the county council and the district councils. We promote SuDS on all developments. So we're looking for any new development is greenfield runoff rates or less. That's what we'll do, and that's agreed on every council, all the 5 districts and the county.
This is outside my realm of expertise, but just hearing about all the piecemeal development and different management plans, etc. If we were to have a new government with a receptive CLG and definitely some clout, is there a possibility that at district level that you could do an overarching strategy with an overarching maintenance plan, etc.?
I think everything's possible, and the current arrangement around long-term management and maintenance is piecemeal, and that can't be a good approach, and it does need a more strategic approach. I guess at the moment, most of the SuDS features we see are either highway SuDS, adopted by the Highway Authority in Oxfordshire, or a lot are going into public open space areas. Historically, the district has taken a lot of those open space areas for maintenance, and therefore there's some comfort that they're in a public body and will be maintained to a sort of a schedule. I think with the approach changing to seeing more management companies and planning is a very poor vehicle to control long-term management, which may need to change and be reactive, I think it is increasingly difficult. Yes, the districts could do it. The issue will be funding.
Yeah, I was thinking the developers could contribute rather than each employing their own consultant. You had one competent, qualified consultant to look at the whole site.
From the Highway Authority point of view, we're always concerned with these developments with SuDS. If the SuDS systems, ponds aren't maintained, Where's the water going to go? It's straight on the highway and the houses opposite, and we'll have to pick up the bill, which means you're paying for it. You know, so the developer gets away with money's back pocket, the ratepayers will cover it if these things aren't done properly. That's the problem.
I'm certainly talking about pool of contributions from the developers.
I think in the strategic planning context, it's often an afterthought or not included at all in terms of local plans in respect of adoption and maintenance of SuDS. So as part of a first pass, really, it's getting that message embedded in a local planning policy. That adoption and maintenance needs to be core for any sort of new developments coming forward. Of course, you're limited by how many bites of the cherry you can have with the local plan process. No, it's only opened up every so often. But that's probably the route that I go down first. Do you have a question?
Laura Kent, Bucks County Council, SuDS officer. The more I come to these events, the more I realise how vastly different every single LLFA structures their teams and structures the way in which they operate. We're neighbours, obviously, and you deal with highways, drainage. We don't. And so whereas you can go in under Section 28 with highways and inspect on those grounds, and you're recommending other LLFAs to do that, we don't have that clout, we don't have that power to go in. If you weren't responsible for highways drainage, would you find some other legislative loophole, or would you rely on the districts, as you clearly have a good relationship with your districts?
You can't rely on the districts. Not because we haven't got, it's because they haven't got the staff to do it.
They haven't got the resources?
No.
No, that's it.
You know, I mean, we're lucky. I mean, in our, say, I cover all highways, legal authority stuff, all plan applications, and it's crazy. They can't cope. You know, it's a job to keep up. Our inspectors on Section 38 do go in, and we try and push them to, you know, keep an eye on, have a look at. If there's problems, we get called out and go and have a look. And the biggest count comes when it comes to adoption. You know, we adopt this, no, go away. Do it, get it done right before we look at it. You know, but the districts can't do that. They haven't got half of them, not building inspectors. I mean, developers now, they can choose who wants a building inspector, third party, their own, or whatever else. You know, so there's no guarantees that you're getting what the districts want all the time. The building plan authority.
This is the frustration that definitely I'm personally finding with my role, is that we can say whatever we want to say, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They can ignore us completely.
But you can, when it comes at the end, I mean, you've got to approve the development, you've got to approve the maintenance plan, or make a management company. I mean, if you don't approve it, then you don't approve it. You know, I don't know what power you've got then, but I think you have got powers on that.
I mean, the way we'd normally do it would be to put a condition on, and we'd normally make it a prior to commencement condition, which obviously now will have to be agreed with the developer, and that would be where the strength would lie. I think it's really difficult because, you know, we know if SuDS are going into the highways, they're going to be inspected and picked up through Section 38. In the past, a lot of the SuDS in the open space areas, those open space areas were adopted, so we had people out checking those, not to the same level necessarily, but there was a check. Where they're going to private management companies, there may be no check in the system at all, so even if you've approved all the right details, there might be no one on site, unless it's picked up by one of the highways inspectors who happens to notice something, and they are quite good. They do ring up from time to time saying, did you know that? But, you know, there is no check in the system, and I think the first you'll possibly know about it is when there's a problem and someone's flooded. Yeah.
But why can't you work with your highway, with your Section 38 million bucks?
I know, it'd be great, wouldn't it? We trained them on SuDS the other day. We gave them a lovely training session, didn't we?
But you should be working together.
Yeah.
We work very close with our road agreements team. You know, we check all the 278, 38s come through, all the drawings on drainage. You know, they always come to us, and the inspectors come, oh, you've seen this, can you look at this, what do you think of this? Can they change this? For us to approve or not. So you need to be working together with them. If you're not in this, whether you're in planning side, if you're in separate, you need to got to work together.
Thank you.
I was trying to say, have you got the model wrong? Maybe we should have thought at the time. Strong lobbying. Maybe the system should be integrated. Attached to the highway rather than having separate team. But at the same time, if we did do that, we have a problem. I think most of the highway engineers are against that, so nothing will be prepared. Yes, your scripture maybe a bit of a unique situation. Maybe a few others. We have highways. Pro highways. Highway engineers like Gordon, pro sides. Yeah, but most of the country, I think it is opposite. The highway engineers they don't want to know about such too much. Yeah, so I don't know. Where we have good, sort of highway teams, resources, should we start structuring teams a bit more integrated teams rather than having two separate teams? I was trying to say the comment, in comments about that. Yeah.
What would be really nice would be for us to go to Unitary. Unitary is the dream right now, to have all of those powers.
But then you still have the SuDS side under planning, the Unitary, and the highway separate. Don't you say that they'll combine?
I think we have time for one more question.
Audrey Gerber, University of Sheffield. Can the panel comment please in connection with planted SuDS, looking at from a perspective both of performance and maintenance? Is plant selection currently acceptable for the layers of performance of SuDS, or is there room for improvement?
I don't know. I think there's always room for improvement. Obviously there are ecologists within the county, within the district, who pick what plants they want to see on the site, pick what trees they want to see. But often, as you said, with the silting up, if they're done early on, they're not capable of coping with all the silt and stuff coming down and construction rubbish, and that kills them. So they've got to redo it. But it is. I'm not an expert on plants.
I was telling Gordon earlier about a problem we'd had on site where a swale had been designed with reed planting within it, and over the winter, obviously, it had died back to a certain extent, and the sales team didn't like the look of it, so they instructed that it came out, and actually they've planted lavender back in, which is entirely wrong. So I think these are the sort of things that happen. So the original design was right, it was all discussed, the landscapers and the drainage engineers worked together to get the right solution, and yet someone's come along later without an understanding of what that was designed to do and why it was like it was, and you've got a change that's obviously entirely inappropriate. So I think it is about people understanding more than just their area of work that ultimately will make things successful.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one question for Jenny, and it's do you think water neutrality is ever achievable as a planning policy?
Technically, I think it's perfectly achievable. I think the issue comes down to cost, and I guess it's achievable in two ways. One is by an offsetting approach where you would retrofit within the existing area to reduce water use. So technically not that difficult, but there's a cost associated with it. I think the other area is possibly more challenging, which Renuka was talking about, was the ability to recycle water on site, and we had quite a lot of discussions about that, and I think again Renuka would say perfectly technically achievable. The question is whether it's economically viable to do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just to elaborate a bit more, I think at the moment we're considering to use the recycled water, for example, only for non-potable. Yeah, but if you can sort of change the people's perceptions, since we are treating the water already a very high standard, because upstream tributaries, we need to be very high, you know, sort of discharge concerns, yeah, and so forth. Yeah. So, you know, with no extra money, you know, obviously it's going to take, you know, so, you know, we can bring up to sort of, you know, and people's changing attitudes for sort of, you know, portable standards, you know, if you wanted, so, you know, that might then sort of, you know, go towards neutrality. But I think, you know, in certain cases, you know, where you have local groundwater resources, you know, we can, you know, build on, then, you know, water neutrality is not impossible, I think. But in this case, we are in water stressed area, and we didn't have enough groundwater local groundwater resources, you know, we can abstract fully, yeah. So, which means, you know, we could get that, you know, sort of the missing gap, you know, filled in, yeah.
Thank you very much. Can we just show our appreciation for the panel?